Welcome to the final chapter of the journey of a king. After battles fought and promises made, we now stand on the threshold of David's legacy. Solomon builds a temple of breathtaking beauty, fulfilling a father's dream. But is a structure of stone the ultimate fulfillment of God's promise? How does a covenant with David lead to the birth of a king greater than any Israel has ever known? Join us as we conclude this journey with a story of love that stretches beyond time, where the line of David carries the hope of all humanity to its highest fulfillment.
As I near the end of my days, my thoughts often turn to Solomon, my son, my chosen heir, the one whom the Lord has called to continue the work I could not finish. He is young, perhaps too young to bear the weight of a kingdom, but he has wisdom beyond his years. I see in him the potential to lead with strength and wisdom that will honor the God who has carried me through every trial. I have tried to prepare him as best I can. I have shared with him the stories of my youth, the battles I fought, the victories won not by my own strength, but by the hand of the Lord. I have told him of my failures too, the moments when my pride and sin led me astray, and the consequences that followed. I want him to learn from my mistakes, to walk in humility before the God who has been so merciful to me. The Lord has made it clear that Solomon is the one to build the temple, the house where his name will dwell. It was a task I longed to undertake, but the Lord in his wisdom has reserved it for my son. And so I have done all I can to lay the foundation, not in stone, but in preparation. The materials have been gathered, the plans drawn, and the workers enlisted. All that remains is for Solomon to take up the mantle and see it through. The temple will be a testament to the greatness of our God, a place where heaven and earth will meet. It will be a place of worship, of sacrifice, of communion with the Lord. But it will also be a symbol of his covenant with us, his promise to establish my house forever. Through Solomon, through this temple, and ultimately through the Messiah, that promise will be fulfilled. As I look at Solomon, I see the hope of Israel. He carries the weight of the throne, the task of building the temple, and the responsibility of leading our people in the ways of the Lord. It is a heavy burden, but I trust that the God who has been faithful to me will be faithful to him as well. I have prayed for Solomon every day, that he would have a heart fully devoted to the Lord, that he would seek wisdom and justice, that he would lead with humility and faith. I have charged him to walk in the ways of the Lord, to obey his commands, and to trust in his promises. And as I prepare to leave this world, my prayer is that Solomon will carry forward the legacy not of my throne, but of God's faithfulness. The story of my life is nearing its end, but the story of God's people continues. The temple, the throne, the kingdom, all of it points to a greater story, one that will culminate in the coming of the Messiah. My role has been but a small part of that story, and for that I am grateful. As I lay down the crown, I do so with peace, knowing that the God who called me from the fields of Bethlehem will guide Solomon as he guided me. My time is ending, but his promises endure forever, and in that truth I find my greatest joy. As I watched Solomon ascend the throne, I felt a mixture of pride and trepidation. He was young, untested in the ways of leadership, yet chosen by the Lord for a task that would define the future of Israel. My role as king was coming to an end, and with it, my ability to guide the people I had shepherded for so long. Now it was Solomon's turn, and my prayers for him became my constant refrain. "Grant him wisdom, Lord," I would whisper in the quiet of the night. "Guide his steps, steady his heart, and let him lead with justice and humility." I knew the weight of the crown, the burden of ruling a kingdom, and I prayed that Solomon would not be crushed by it, but strengthened. When Solomon shared the dream he had, my heart swelled with gratitude and awe. The Lord had appeared to him at Gibeon, offering him anything he desired. It was a moment of divine opportunity, one that could shape the course of his reign. Solomon, in his youth, could have asked for riches, for power, for the defeat of his enemies. Yet he chose something far greater: wisdom. "Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, the great people, too numerous to count or number," Solomon had prayed. "So, give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who can govern this great people of yours?" I marveled at the humility in his request, the recognition of his own limitations, and the acknowledgement of the greatness of God's calling. This was the Solomon I had prayed for, a king who understood that true leadership begins with dependence on the Lord. The Lord's response was more than we could have hoped for. He granted Solomon unparalleled wisdom, a gift that would make him the most discerning of kings. But he did not stop there. God, in his abundant grace, promised Solomon wealth, honor, and peace, blessings that would mark his reign as a golden age for Israel. When Solomon recounted the dream to me, I saw a new resolve in his eyes. He was no longer the boy who had grown up within the safety of the palace walls. He was a king, chosen and anointed by God, equipped with the wisdom to lead. My prayers for him shifted that day from pleas for preparation to praises for God's provision. As I reflect on that moment now, I see it as a testament to the faithfulness of the Lord. He does not call the equipped, he equips the called. Solomon's request for wisdom was not just an answer to his need. It was a reminder to all of Israel that our strength lies not in our own understanding, but in the fear of the Lord. The temple Solomon would build, the peace he would bring, the prosperity Israel would enjoy, all of it began with a single request, spoken from a heart that sought God above all else. And as a father, a king, and a servant of the Lord, I could not have been prouder. Solomon's wisdom would become the cornerstone of his reign, a legacy that pointed not to his greatness, but to the greatness of the God who gave it. And as I look toward the end of my life, I find peace in knowing that the God who guided me will guide my son, leading him in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. The stories began to reach me soon after Solomon's decision in the case of the two women. Whispers turned to declarations, and soon all of Israel was speaking of the wisdom of its young king. As a father, my heart swelled with pride. As a king who had walked the path of leadership for decades, I marveled at how quickly Solomon had stepped into his calling. The case itself was simple in its facts, but devastating in its implications. Two women, both claiming to be the mother of the same child, stood before Solomon. It was a dilemma with no clear evidence and no witnesses to verify their claims. Yet it was also a test of Solomon's discernment, his understanding of human nature, and his ability to deliver justice. I could picture the scene as it was described to me. Solomon seated on his throne, the women standing before him, their voices raised in desperation and accusation. The child, innocent and unaware of the storm surrounding him, lay quietly as the two women pleaded their case. It was the kind of moment that could break a ruler's resolve or cement his authority. Solomon's solution was as shocking as it was brilliant. "Bring me a sword," he had commanded. The room must have fallen silent at his words, the tension thick enough to cut with the very blade he requested. "Cut the living child in two," he declared, "and give half to one and half to the other." The brilliance of Solomon's wisdom lay not in the brutality of the suggestion, but in the insight it revealed. He was not truly advocating harm to the child. He was revealing the heart of the women before him, and when one of them cried out, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby, do not kill him," while the other coldly agreed to the division, Solomon's path to justice became clear. The true mother was not the one with the strongest claim, but the one with the greatest love, the one willing to sacrifice her claim to protect the life of her child. Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother, Solomon declared, his voice steady with the authority of divine wisdom. When the news reached me, I could not help but marvel at what the Lord had done through my son. This was the wisdom Solomon had prayed for, the wisdom that could only come from God. It was a moment that affirmed not only Solomon's role as king, but also the faithfulness of the Lord in answering our prayers. As a father, I had always hoped to see Solomon rise to the challenges of leadership. As a king, I knew how critical it was for the people to trust their ruler and to see him as a man of justice and integrity. This moment accomplished both. The people marveled at Solomon's discernment, declaring that he had the wisdom of God to administer justice. I found myself reflecting on my own journey, on the moments when the Lord's guidance had led me through seemingly impossible decisions, and Solomon's wisdom reminded me that true leadership begins with dependence on God, with a heart that seeks His will above all else. The display of Solomon's wisdom in that case was not just a triumph for him, it was a reminder to all of Israel that our strength and understanding come from the Lord. It was a testament to the God who had chosen us, who had established my throne, and who was now guiding my son. And as I listened to the accounts of Solomon's judgment, I offered a prayer of gratitude, knowing that the Lord was with him, just as He had been with me. The vision of the temple had burned in my heart for years. I had walked the fields as a shepherd, gazed at the heavens, and felt the presence of the Lord in the quiet stillness of the night. I had seen His faithfulness in the caves where I hid from Saul, in the victories He gave me in battle, and in the promise He made to establish my throne forever. And yet the Ark of the Covenant, the very symbol of His presence, dwelt in a tent. It was my greatest longing to build a house for the Lord, a dwelling place worthy of His glory. But when I shared this desire with Nathan, the Lord made His will clear. The task would not be mine. "You are not the one to build a house for my name," He said. "Your son, who will come after you, will build the house for my name." At first, the words stung. I had fought wars, united tribes, and brought the ark to Jerusalem. I had seen the Lord's hand in every step of my journey. Why then was I not the one to complete this sacred task? But as I knelt before him in prayer, I understood. The Lord's plans were greater than mine. He had chosen Solomon for this purpose, and I would honor his will by preparing the way. Gathering the materials for the temple became my mission. I called for cedar from Lebanon, gold, silver and bronze of the finest quality, and precious stones to adorn the house of the Lord. I consulted with architects and craftsmen, ensuring that every detail would reflect the majesty of the God we served. The plans for the temple began to take shape, not just in my mind, but on parchment, a blueprint for the vision God had entrusted to my son. I often shared these plans with Solomon, sitting with him in the cool of the evening as we discussed the work ahead. "This will not be an ordinary building," I told him. "It will be the dwelling place of the Lord, a house where his glory will reside. The nations will look to it and see the greatness of our God." Solomon listened intently, his youthful eyes wide, with both excitement and the weight of responsibility. "Father," he said one evening, "do you think I am ready for this?" I placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the strength of his frame, but sensing the uncertainty within him. "The Lord has chosen you, my son," I said. "He will give you the wisdom and strength you need, and the power to set in motion the change-making work. You will be the best emperor in the world." The temple was not just a structure of stone and wood, it was a symbol of the covenant between God and his people. Every detail, from the towering cherubim in the Holy of Holies to the intricate carvings of palm trees and flowers on the walls, was a reflection of his beauty and creativity. It was a place where heaven and earth would meet, where the people of Israel could come to offer their sacrifices and prayers. As I watched Solomon begin the work, I felt a mixture of pride and peace. This was his task, his calling, and I knew the Lord would be with him, just as he had been with me. The temple would stand as a testament to the faithfulness of God, a reminder of his presence among his people, and a beacon of hope for generations to come. Though I would not see its completion, I felt the joy of knowing that my son would carry forward the vision. The God who had been faithful to me in the pastures of Bethlehem, in the wilderness of Judea, and on the throne of Jerusalem, would be faithful still. And as the foundations of the temple were laid, I offered a prayer of gratitude. "Lord, let this house be a place where your name is lifted high, where your people find refuge, and where the nations will come to know you as the one true God." Though my days were drawing to a close, I often imagined the moment when the temple, the house of the Lord, would be dedicated. Though I would not live to see it, my heart swelled with anticipation. The plans I had drawn, the materials I had gathered, and the vision I had shared with Solomon would all come to fruition. It was not just a building, it was a promise fulfilled, a place where the glory of God would dwell among his people. I could see it in my mind's eye, the people of Israel gathering from every corner of the kingdom, their hearts lifted in worship. The Ark of the Covenant, the very symbol of God's presence, would be carried into the Holy of Holies, a place prepared with reverence and adorned with the finest gold and craftsmanship. The air would be thick with the sound of singing, the aroma of sacrifices, and the overwhelming sense of God's presence. I prayed often for Solomon as the work progressed, asking the Lord to grant him wisdom and strength. "Lord," I would whisper in the quiet of the night, "Let this house be a place where your name is exalted, where your people find refuge, and where the nations come to know you as the one true God." My hope was not just for the temple itself, but for what it represented, a bridge between heaven and earth, a sign of God's covenant with his people. The day of dedication would be a moment unlike any other. I imagined Solomon standing before the altar, his voice steady as he led the people in prayer. He would call upon the Lord to bless the temple, to hear the prayers offered there, and to forgive the sins of his people. It would be a prayer not just for Israel, but for the world, for the foreigners who would come to seek the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In my heart, I could already see the glory of the Lord descending upon the temple, a cloud so thick that the priests would be unable to stand to minister. It would be a moment that confirmed the Lord's presence, his faithfulness, and his covenant. The people would fall to their knees in awe, their voices rising in praise. The Lord is good, his love endures forever. I knew that the temple would be a beacon of hope for generations to come, a reminder of God's unchanging love and his desire to dwell among his people. Yet I also knew it pointed to something far greater. The sacrifices offered there, the prayers lifted, the songs of praise, they were all a shadow of what was to come. The Messiah, the Anointed One, would one day fulfill the promise of God's eternal kingdom. Though my hands would not lay the final stone, I felt the joy of knowing that I had played a part in preparing the way. The temple would stand as a testament to the faithfulness of the God who had called me from the pastures of Bethlehem, who had delivered me from every trial, and who had established my throne. As I imagined the dedication of the temple, my heart was at peace. The work I had begun would continue through Solomon, and the God who had been with me would be with him as well. And so, even as my days waned, my hope burned brightly, rooted in the unshakable promise of the Lord. "Your kingdom will endure forever," he had said. And in that promise, I found my greatest joy and my deepest rest. As my days come to an end, I find myself reflecting on all that has been accomplished, though in truth it is not I who have accomplished it, but the Lord. I have seen victories won, cities built, and a kingdom united under the banner of God. I have been privileged to lead his people and to serve as his instrument in fulfilling his promises. But as I look upon the temple, the symbol of all that we have built, I am reminded of one truth. None of it is ours. All of it is his. The temple that Solomon is building will stand as a testament to the Lord's faithfulness, a place where his name will dwell among his people. It is a vision that I have carried in my heart for so long, one that I will not see come to fruition in my lifetime, but one that I know will be fulfilled. Though I will not lay the final stone, I know that the God who has been faithful to me will be faithful to him as well. I reflect on the promises God made to me, the covenant he established with my house, the throne that would endure forever, and the kingdom that would not fail. At times, it feels too great a promise for a man like me, one who has stumbled and faltered. I have sinned against the Lord. I have sinned against the Lord. I have sinned against the Lord. Has faithfulness been immeasurable, his faithfulness beyond comprehension? I think of my sins, my mistakes, the affair with Bathsheba, the death of Uriah, the rebellion of my sons, and the mistakes I made as a father and king. I think of the moments when I was distant from the Lord, when my pride blinded me to His will. Yet, through it all, He has been with me. Even in my darkest hours, He has drawn me back to Himself, offering forgiveness and restoration. And now, as I prepare to pass the mantle to Solomon, I pray that he will walk in the ways of the Lord, that he will govern with wisdom and justice, and that he will remain faithful to the covenant we share with God. I pray that he will finish what I began, and that the temple, the house of the Lord, will stand as a lasting symbol of his greatness. I think of the legacy I will leave behind, not in the power of my reign, not in the riches of my kingdom, but in the faithfulness of the God who has been with me through it all. It is His kingdom, His work, His temple, and when I am gone, I trust that His promises will endure, that the throne of David will remain secure, and that the Messiah, the one who will reign forever, will come. As I near the end of my life, I find peace in the knowledge that God has used me, in spite of my flaws, to accomplish His purposes. I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith, the temple, the kingdom, and the covenant. They are all part of a larger story, a story that will culminate in the coming of the Messiah, the King who will reign forever and ever. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and hope, I lay down my crown and rest in the promises of the Lord, knowing that His faithfulness will continue long after I am gone. The temple will stand, His kingdom will endure, and the God who has been with me will be with Solomon and with all of Israel forever.
As David's journey concludes, we see his legacy fulfilled in ways beyond his imagination. Solomon's temple stands as a testament to his faith, but the ultimate promise lies in the coming of the Messiah. How does one king's story point to a savior for all humanity? If this final chapter stirred your soul, give this video a like and share it with someone who needs hope today. Thank you for being part of this journey. Subscribe to God's Story to explore more lives that changed history through God's eternal plan.